My mother stood up at my father's hospital fundraiser and told everyone I had stolen his medical money. Then she handed my husband a folder and said, "Ask your wife where the missing $42,000 went." The worst part? For about 30 seconds, even I believed her. My mother accused me of stealing from my dying father in front of almost everyone I knew. It happened in the church fellowship hall, under fluorescent lights, next to a folding table full of casseroles and donation envelopes. My dad was sitting in his wheelchair near the front, wrapped in a gray blanket even though it was August in Ohio. He had late-stage kidney failure, and the fundraiser was supposed to help cover home care, transportation, and some bills insurance kept reviewing. My husband, Mark, had his arm around me. My best friend, Lauren, was standing behind the dessert table, and my mother, Denise, was holding a microphone like she was about to thank everyone for coming. Instead, she looked directly at me and said, "Before anyone donates another $1, I need to tell the truth." The room went quiet. I thought she was going to say something emotional about my dad. Then she said, "My daughter, Rachel, has been managing some of the family money, and now $42,000 is missing." I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because my brain refused to accept that she was talking about me. Mark's arm slowly dropped from my shoulder. My dad looked confused and tired, like he didn't fully understand what was happening. My older sister, Jenna, covered her mouth, but she didn't look shocked. That was the first thing I noticed. She didn't look shocked at all. My mom lifted a manila folder. "I didn't want to do this publicly," she said, while absolutely doing it publicly. "But when someone steals from a sick man, silence becomes enabling." People turned toward me. The pastor's wife looked down at the floor. Someone near the back whispered, "Oh my God." I said, "Mom, what are you talking about?" She walked right past me and handed the folder to Mark. Not to me, to my husband, like I was already guilty. Mark opened it with shaking hands. Inside were printed bank statements, copies of checks, and screenshots of transfers. My name was on them. Rachel Morgan. Some of the transactions were from an account I didn't recognize. One showed a payment to a furniture store. Another showed a vacation rental in Florida. Another showed several withdrawals labeled cash. My mother said, "Your father trusted you." My throat went dry. "I didn't make those transactions," I said. Jenna made this tiny sound, almost like a sob. Then she said, "Rach, please don't make Mom prove more than she already has." That sentence hit me harder than my mother's accusation, because Jenna had always been selfish, but she had never sounded rehearsed before. Mark looked at me and asked quietly, "What is this account?" "I don't know," I said. My mom snapped, "Don't lie in front of God." And that was when the whole room shifted. It stopped being confusion. It became judgment. A woman from my dad's old office stepped back from the donation table like the envelopes were suddenly contaminated. My cousin Tyler stared at me with his mouth half open. Someone actually picked up their purse. I wanted to scream, but my dad's face broke me. He looked at me with wet eyes and whispered, "Rachel." Just my name, not an accusation, not a defense, just my name, like he needed me to explain why the room had turned ugly. I walked over to him and kneeled beside his wheelchair. "Dad, I swear to you, I didn't take anything." My mom said, "Then explain the signatures." I turned around slowly. "What signatures?" She pulled out another page, a loan document. My full legal name was typed at the top, and at the bottom was a signature that looked almost exactly like mine. Almost, but not quite. My stomach dropped, because the R was wrong. I have always signed my first name with a looped R because my grandmother taught me cursive when I was little. Whoever signed that document had copied my name from somewhere else, but they didn't know that detail. I stood up and said, "That is not my signature." Jenna immediately said, "That's what you're going with?" Mark looked at her. "Why are you talking like you already know everything?" he asked. For the first time that day, Jenna looked nervous. My mother cut in fast. Because she helped me find the evidence. Of course she did. My perfect older sister. The one who has spent our whole childhood being praised for being practical, while I was called dramatic. The one who borrowed money and called it family support. The one who always somehow got my mother to take her side before I even knew there was a side. I looked at Mark. Give me the folder. He hesitated. That hesitation hurt more than I expected. But he handed it to me. I flipped through the papers. Half of them looked real. Half looked like screenshots printed from a phone. There were bank logos, dates, reference numbers, and my name attached to things I had never seen. Then I saw something that made my heart stop. An address. Not mine. Jenna's. One of the statements listed a mailing address for the account. It was Jenna's apartment. I looked up. Why is your address on this? The room went so silent, I could hear the ice machine humming in the kitchen. Jenna blinked. What? I held up the page. This account you say I used to steal from Dad? The address is your apartment. My mom rushed toward me. Give me that. I stepped back. No. Jenna said, that must be old. I used to receive some family mail. You lived there for 7 years, I said. I've never lived there. My mother's face changed. Not enough for everyone to notice, but enough for me. For 1 second, she looked terrified. Then she recovered and said, this isn't about Jenna. This is about you. That was the exact moment I knew. Maybe I didn't know everything yet, but I knew one thing. My mother was lying. The fundraiser ended in the most humiliating way possible. People quietly left. A few hugged my mother. One woman told Mark she was praying for him, not us. Him. My dad was taken home by my uncle because my mom said she couldn't be around me right now. Mark and I drove home without speaking for 10 minutes. Then he pulled into a gas station parking lot, turned off the car, and said, tell me the truth. I stared at him. I just did. He rubbed his hands over his face. Rachel, I'm not accusing you. I'm asking because those documents had your name on them. My name was on them because someone put it there. Who? My mom? Jenna? I don't know yet. He looked exhausted. You understand how insane that sounds, right? That was when I lost it. More insane than me stealing $42,000 from my dying father and then showing up at a fundraiser full of people who know me? He didn't answer. I started crying, but not soft crying. Angry crying. I have covered for that family my whole life. I paid Mom's electric bill last winter. I sent Jenna money when she said her car was going to be repossessed. I took Dad to dialysis when Mom said she was too overwhelmed. And today, they stood in front of everyone and made me look like a criminal. Mark's face softened. But he still asked, why would they do that? I looked out at the gas pumps. That was the question. Why would they do that? The next morning, I called the bank listed on one of the statements. I expected them to say there was no account, that the papers were fake, and I could breathe again. Instead, after I verified my name, social security number, and date of birth, the woman on the phone said, yes, I see the account ending in 1184. My legs went weak. I sat down on the kitchen floor. I didn't open that account. There was a pause. The woman's voice changed into that careful customer service tone people use when they realize something is very wrong. Ma'am, I'm going to transfer you to our fraud department. Mark came into the kitchen and saw my face. What happened? I muted the phone and whispered, the account is real. His expression went pale. The fraud representative asked if I had ever lived at Jenna's address. No. Had I authorized Jenna Morgan or Denise Morgan to access the account? No. Had I applied for a personal loan 9 months earlier? No. Then she asked the question I still think about. Have you recently had issues with stolen mail, missing documents, or family members accessing personal information? Family members. She said it so casually, like this happened every day. And maybe it did. By noon, I had discovered 3 things. A personal loan had been opened in my name. A checking account had been opened in my name. And 2 credit cards had been opened in my name. All of them used Jenna's address as the mailing address. All of them listed my mother's phone number as a backup contact. I felt like I was falling through my own life. Mark sat beside me at the table while I wrote everything down. Then my phone buzzed. It was Lauren, my best friend. The message said, "Please call me before you do anything crazy." I stared at it. Something about that sentence felt wrong. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "I'm so sorry." Before you do anything crazy. I called her. She answered on the first ring. "Rachel, I need you to calm down." I said, "Why does everyone keep talking to me like I'm the problem?" She sighed. "I'm not saying that." "Then what are you saying?" There was a long pause. Then she said, "Your mom called me last night." Of course she did. "What did she say?" "She said you're under a lot of pressure and you might try to twist this around on Jenna." I laughed once. It came out cold. "And what did you say?" Lauren didn't answer fast enough. My stomach twisted. "Lauren," she said, "I told her I didn't want to get involved." "You were at the fundraiser. You watched her accuse me in public." "I know." "And you said nothing." "I didn't know what was true." I closed my eyes. This was the friend who had been my maid of honor. The friend who knew I cried in bathrooms after family holidays. The friend who once told me my mother treated guilt like a family tradition. And suddenly she didn't know what was true. Then she said something that made my skin go cold. "Look, if you did borrow money and it got out of hand, people would understand more if you just admitted it." I hung up. Mark asked, "What happened?" I said, "I think they got to Lauren too." That afternoon, my mother started texting me, not apologizing, not explaining, threatening. First, "You embarrassed this family." Then, "Your father can't handle stress. If something happens to him, that is on you." Then, "Do not contact the bank again until we talk as a family." That last message mattered. Do not contact the bank again. I showed Mark. He stared at the screen and said, "That sounds like panic." For the first time since the fundraiser, he didn't sound doubtful. He sounded angry. That night, Jenna called me from a blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Before I could speak, she said, "You need to stop digging." No hello, no fake concern, just that. I put the phone on speaker. Mark sat up immediately. I said, "Why?" "Because Mom is losing it." "Good." She did what she thought she had to do. I felt my pulse in my neck. "What does that mean?" Jenna breathed hard into the phone. "You don't understand what it's been like. You left. You got married. You bought a house. You got your perfect little life." I almost laughed. "My perfect life? I've been sending Mom money for years." "Exactly," Jenna snapped. "Because you can afford it." There it was, the family math. If I had something, they were entitled to it. If I said no, I was selfish. If they took it, they were desperate. I said, "Did you open accounts in my name?" She didn't answer. Mark's jaw tightened. "Jenna," I said, "answer me." She whispered, "Mom said it was temporary." The room went still. My fingers went numb. What was temporary? Jenna started crying, not the innocent kind. The cornered kind. She said your credit was better and Dad needed help, and you would say no if we asked. I said, "So you committed fraud?" "No, Mom handled the paperwork. You just what?" "I just let the mail come to my place." Mark stood up and walked away, hands on his head. I could barely breathe. "How much?" Jenna sobbed. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." "I don't." "Jenna." She went quiet. Then she said, "More than 42. My heart dropped. The number at the fundraiser was not the full amount. It was the amount they wanted people to think I stole. I asked. How much more? She whispered, almost 90. Mark turned around. $90,000? He said. Jenna heard his voice and panicked. You have me on speaker? Yes, I said. She started yelling. You're such a psycho! This is why Mom didn't want to tell you. You always make everything a war. I said, you stole my identity. You abandoned us. That sentence actually stunned me, because that was my mother's voice coming out of my sister's mouth. I hung up. Then I immediately saved the call recording. Ohio is a one-party consent state. I had checked the year before after a fight with my mother where she denied screaming at me for 20 minutes. At the time, I felt guilty for even looking it up. Now it felt like survival. The next few days were a blur of fraud reports, police paperwork, credit freezes, and phone calls that made me want to crawl out of my own body. The bank sent me copies of application documents. The personal loan had been signed electronically. The IP address traced back to a location near my mother's house. One credit card had charges at grocery stores, pharmacies, gas stations, and a local furniture outlet. The other had charges that made my blood boil. Hair appointments, a weekend resort, concert tickets, a designer purse from a department store. Jenna. My father's medical money had partly paid for Jenna's lifestyle. But the biggest twist came from a woman named Paula at the credit union. She called me and said, Rachel, there's something else you need to know. My stomach tightened. There's more? She hesitated. There was an attempted home equity line of credit application using your information. I froze. We don't own our house outright. I know, she said. It was denied. I put my hand over my mouth. They had tried to borrow against my house. My house. The little ranch Mark and I bought after saving for 6 years. The house where I planted hydrangeas because my grandmother loved them. The house my mother mocked because it was small, right before asking me to host Thanksgiving there. I thanked Paula, hung up, and walked into the backyard. Then I threw up in the grass. Mark found me outside and held my hair back without saying anything. Afterward, I sat on the patio steps shaking. He sat beside me. I'm sorry, he said. I looked at him. For what? For hesitating at the fundraiser. That broke me in a different way. I started crying so hard I couldn't speak. He pulled me into him and said, I should have known. I said, I didn't even know. That was the worst part. The betrayal had been happening quietly while I was still trying to be a good daughter. My dad called me 2 days later. I almost didn't answer because I was scared of what he would say. His voice was weak. Rachel? Hi, Dad. There was a long silence. Then he said, Your mother won't let me see the papers. My chest tightened. What papers? The ones from the church. I sat down. She didn't show you? No, she said it would upset me. Of course. My mother had used my father's illness as a stage prop, then kept him in the dark afterward. He said, Did you take anything? I closed my eyes. No. He exhaled shakily. I didn't think so. 5 words. That was all it took to make me cry again. He whispered, I'm sorry I didn't say that in the room. You were sick, Dad. I was scared. I know. Then his voice dropped. Your mother has been telling people you have a gambling problem. I went cold. What? She said that's why you needed money. I stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. I don't gamble. I know. She's telling people that? She told my brother, and Jenna told your aunt. The humiliation spread through me all over again. Not only had they accused me of stealing, they were building a character around the lie. A reckless daughter, a secret addict, a thief, a woman who couldn't be trusted. And people were believing it because my mother cried prettier than I defended myself. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg them privately. I wasn't going to defend myself one person at a time while they poisoned the entire family tree. I was going to expose the truth in the same place they tried to bury me, publicly. But I didn't post anything yet. I waited, because I wanted proof so clean nobody could twist it. For 2 weeks, I documented everything. I got written statements from the bank. I pulled my credit report. I saved screenshots of my mother's texts. I saved Jenna's voicemail after she forgot to block her number and screamed, "You're ruining Mom's life over money you would have helped with anyway." That one sentence became important, because it proved they believed they were entitled to take from me if they thought I might have given it under pressure. Lauren texted me 3 times. First, "I hope you're okay." Then, "Your mom is saying police are involved?" Then, "I feel like I'm missing something." I didn't answer. Not yet. Then came my mother's biggest mistake. She planned another family meeting at my Aunt Karen's house. She told everyone it was to help Rachel take accountability before things got legal. Before things got legal. Things were already legal. She just didn't know how legal. My dad called me secretly from his nurse's phone and told me about it. "She doesn't know I called you," he said. "Do you want me there?" He was quiet. Then he said, "I want the truth there." So I went. Mark came with me, and I brought a folder. Not a messy folder full of half-truths, a real one. Police report number, fraud affidavits, credit reports, bank letters, screenshots, call transcript, timeline, every ugly piece of it. When we walked into Aunt Karen's living room, my mother was already crying. That woman could cry on command better than most actors. Jenna was sitting beside her, rubbing her back. Lauren was there too. That surprised me. She looked at me and immediately looked away. My dad was in a recliner near the window, oxygen tube under his nose. He looked exhausted. My mother said, "Thank you for coming, Rachel. I hope you're ready to stop punishing this family." I smiled, not because I was happy, because I finally understood something. My mother didn't think she had done nothing wrong. She thought being a mother meant she could do wrong and still be protected. Aunt Karen cleared her throat. "Let's all stay calm." I said, "Absolutely." Jenna rolled her eyes. "Here we go." I looked at her. "You may want to be quiet for this part." Her face hardened. My mom said, "Do not threaten your sister." "I'm not threatening her," I said. "I'm warning her." Then I opened my folder. My mom's crying stopped. I handed the first packet to Aunt Karen. "This is the fraud report I filed." The room shifted. My mother said, "Fraud report?" "Yes." Jenna sat up. I handed another packet to my uncle. "These are the accounts opened in my name using Jenna's address and Mom's phone number." Lauren looked up fast. I handed another packet to my dad. "These are the bank letters confirming I disputed the accounts as identity theft." My dad's hands shook as he held the pages. My mother stood up. "Rachel, this is not necessary." I said, "You accused me in a church hall." She said, "Because I was scared." "No, you were exposed." Jenna snapped, "You don't know what Mom was dealing with." I turned to her. "Credit card bills from your resort weekend?" Her mouth opened. I pulled out a highlighted statement. Spa package. 2 nights, room service, boutique purchase, all on a card opened in my name. Lauren whispered, "Oh my God." My mother pointed at me. "She's twisting it. Jenna was under stress too." That sentence did more damage to them than anything I could have said. Aunt Karen slowly turned toward my mother. "Denise." My mother realized her mistake. I mean emotionally. She was emotionally under stress. I said, "There's more." I played Jenna's recorded call. Just the key part. Mom said it was temporary. "I just let the mail come to my place. More than 40. Almost 90. Jenna lunged toward me. Mark stepped between us. My uncle shouted, "Sit down." Jenna screamed, "You recorded me?" I said, "You confessed." My mother started sobbing again, louder this time, but nobody moved to comfort her. That was new. For the first time in my life, the room did not automatically orbit around her tears. My dad looked at her. "Denise," he said, "tell me this isn't true." She cried harder. "Everything I did for this family." He shook his head. "No." "You were sick," she said. "Bills were piling up. Rachel has always had more than us." I said, "So you stole my identity?" My mother glared at me with a hatred I had never seen so clearly. Then she said, "You were going to inherit everything anyway." The room froze. Even Jenna looked confused. I said, "What does that mean?" My dad's face changed. My mother realized she had gone too far. I turned to him. "Dad?" He swallowed. "I changed my will last year." My ears started ringing. "What?" He looked at Jenna. "I found out your sister had taken money from my checking account. Small amounts at first, then larger. Your mother begged me not to press charges." Jenna whispered, "Dad." He ignored her. "I changed the will so Rachel would manage the house and medical decisions if I couldn't." My mother exploded. "Because she manipulated you!" My dad shouted, with more strength than I thought he had. "Because she was the only one not stealing from me." Silence. Heavy, stunned silence. That was the third twist. This wasn't just about debt. It wasn't just identity theft. My mother and Jenna had found out my father trusted me legally, and they decided to destroy my credibility before anyone else knew why. If I looked unstable, greedy, addicted, or criminal, they could challenge anything tied to my name. My mom sat down like her legs had stopped working. Aunt Karen whispered, "Denise, what did you do?" I asked my dad, "Why didn't you tell me?" He looked ashamed. "I was trying to keep peace." That sentence broke my heart because it explained our entire family. Everyone kept peace, and my mother used the silence like a weapon. The aftermath was ugly. Real life didn't wrap it up in one dramatic scene. Jenna left Aunt Karen's house screaming that I had chosen money over blood. My mother refused to speak to me unless it was through long, vicious texts about betrayal. Lauren followed me outside and cried in the driveway. "I'm sorry," she said. I looked at her and felt nothing at first. That scared me. She said, "Your mom made it sound like you were spiraling. She said you'd been lying to Mark. She said you needed help." I asked, "And you believed her?" Lauren wiped her face. "I didn't want to, but she sounded so sure." I said, "So did I." She flinched. "I know." I didn't forgive her that day. I still haven't fully forgiven her. That's something people don't tell you about betrayal. An apology doesn't instantly rebuild the part of you that learned someone was willing to doubt you. The police investigation moved slowly, but it moved. The bank reversed most of the fraudulent debt after months of documentation. My credit took a hit, then slowly recovered. Mark and I spent evenings making calls instead of watching TV. I learned more about fraud departments, affidavits, and certified mail than I ever wanted to know. My mother kept telling relatives I had taken things too far. Then Jenna was charged. Not dramatically, not with handcuffs at Thanksgiving. Just a formal, quiet legal process that ruined her image more effectively than any screaming match could have. My mother wasn't charged right away, but she became part of the investigation. Her phone records, emails, and IP address were subpoenaed. Suddenly, the woman who loved public accusations wanted privacy. Funny how that works. My dad moved in with Aunt Karen for a while, after a home health nurse overheard my mother yelling at him for choosing Rachel. That was the first time I saw my dad look truly old. Not sick, old. Like he had finally understood the cost of denial. One evening, I visited him at Aunt Karen's. He was sitting on the porch with a blanket over his knees. He said, "I should have protected you sooner." I sat beside him. "I wish you had." He nodded. No excuses. No speech about family, just, "I know." That meant more to me than a perfect apology. A few months later, the church sent me a handwritten letter. Not from everyone, but from the pastor's wife. She said she was sorry for not stopping the fundraiser accusation. She said they had returned the donations until the legal situation was clear. She said my mother had been removed from the volunteer finance committee. I didn't even know my mother was on the finance committee. That explained a lot. Jenna eventually took a plea deal. Restitution, probation, and a felony record she cried about online like it had happened to her randomly. Her Facebook post said, "Sometimes family conflict gets twisted into legal trauma." I almost commented, but I didn't. Instead, I posted one thing. A photo of my grandmother's hydrangeas blooming outside my house. The caption said, "Peace is expensive, but so is silence. I'm done paying for both." People knew. They didn't need details. My mother texted me within 10 minutes. "You always loved humiliating this family." I replied, "No, Mom. I just stopped protecting the people who humiliated me." Then I blocked her. Not forever, maybe, but for now. And for the first time in my life, for now was enough. So be honest. Would you have exposed them too? Because sometimes I still wonder if I went too far. Then I remember standing in that church hall while my own mother handed my husband fake proof and told everyone I stole from my dying father. And I realized something. I didn't destroy my family. I just stopped letting them use me as the place where they hid the damage. Some families don't break when the truth comes out. They break because the truth finally proves who was holding everything together.